In the cracked, blistering heat of the Serengeti, a lone lioness leapt into the path of a raging rhino, its horn aimed like a battering ram, not to fight, but to shield her cub from the thin, trembling line between life and death. Can a mother's love truly override even the instinct to survive? And if it meant giving up her life, would she ever hesitate? This is a true story, one that leaves people in stunned silence, wondering, have we ever been loved that deeply, that fiercely? Join me on this journey, where 107-degree heat is just the setting, and the heart of a mother is the very center of it all. The dry season in the Serengeti burned everything in its path. The wind carried the scent of scorched dust. The ground, cracked and barren, looked like old scars. Mira, a lone lioness mother, walked in silence, quiet but alert. Behind her trailed Kanu, her 6-month-old cub, clumsy on his legs, his bright eyes full of wonder, tired, thirsty. But Mira never let her guard down. Every step was measured, as if even a leaf, even a grain of sand, might hide danger. She paused, lowered her head, and gently licked her cub's cheek, an act so tender it stood out like a whisper in the blistering heat of this dead land. Then suddenly, Kanu sniffed something unfamiliar. A small waterhole hidden behind a few low bushes. He dashed toward it, curious and innocent, like any child. But he didn't know he had just stepped into the edge of death. That place belonged to Rumba, a mother rhino who had given birth less than a week ago. Her maternal instinct flared. She caught the scent and let out a thunderous warning. A split second later, Rumba charged, like a storm of rage given form. Kanu froze, terrified. The ground trembled beneath him. Dust exploded into the air. And at that exact moment, Mira turned. She saw everything. Without hesitation, she ran. But can a lone lioness, exhausted, dehydrated, scorched by the merciless sun, reach her cub in time? Can she save him from the deadly strike of a furious mother rhino? Not a second of hesitation, not a single roar to warn. Mira sprang forward like lightning, racing toward her cub where death was closing in. She tore across the cracked plain in a heartbeat, her lean body stretched to full speed. Ahead, Rumba was nearly on top of Kanu. The massive rhino, caked in dust, thundered forward like a living force of nature. Kanu stood frozen. His tiny legs trembled. He didn't know where to run. He only knew Mama was coming. In that fleeting instant, Mira leapt, throwing every last ounce of her strength into one move, to knock Kanu out of harm's way. The little cub tumbled across the dirt, rolled several meters away, escaping the deadly impact. But Mira didn't. The horn slammed into her left side, hard, brutal, unrelenting. A roar of agony tore from her mouth as her body was flung into the air, and then slammed into the cracked earth. Dust exploded. Mira lay motionless, her side torn open. Blood spilled onto the ground, like a shredded red flower against dry soil. But Rumba didn't stop. She didn't know if her own baby was safe. In her mother's mind, the threat was still there. She turned, heading for the bushes where her calf remained hidden. Mira tried to rise. Her front legs trembled. Claws scraped the dirt. She couldn't let Rumba get to Kanu. The battle began, not between predators and prey, but between two mothers. Mira didn't bite. She didn't leap onto Rumba's back like lions do to antelope. She circled, left, right, blocking the path. Every move calculated to create the one gap her cub needed to slip away. Rumba snorted, then charged again. But Mira stood her ground. She dodged, sidestepped, and blocked the way again. Once, twice. Blood kept flowing. Each hit made her stagger, but her eyes never left the direction of her cub. Far off, Kanu saw it all. He saw his mother, not using claws, not teeth, but her body, her wounds, her shattered breath, to carve a path to survival. Finally, Rumba stopped. Not because she had lost, but because she understood. She exhaled hard, her nostrils steaming. The red fire in her eyes began to fade. In front of her stood no hunter, but a mother, just like her. A mother willing to face anything, even horns as sharp as blades, just so her child could live. Rumba turned away, slowly, and walked back to the bushes, where her own baby waited, safe. The battle was over, but the wounds left behind would haunt us. Will Mira survive the pain she took to save her child? As Rumba turned away, leaving behind a pool of blood still warm on the earth, Mira collapsed. Dust clung to her bleeding wound, her vision blurred, every breath dragged from deep within her chest, heavy and raw, but her ears still stood alert, listening for the tiny footsteps approaching. Kanu was running toward her. He wasn't afraid anymore. He had seen her fall. He had heard the terrifying impact. And now, seeing Mira unable to rise, his heart pounded, not from fear of the rhino, but from fear of losing his mother. Mira lifted her head. She touched noses with Kanu. Kanu pressed his face into her neck. Her breath was warm, but faint, her fur soaked with sweat and blood. He didn't understand why she hurt. He only knew she was getting colder. He licked her cheek, gently, mimicking what she had done for him again and again over the past months. He curled up against her body, trying to shield her from the dry winds sweeping across the plain. He didn't look away. He didn't run. He didn't search for shade. Because now, the only shade he needed was gasping for air in front of him, for the first time in his life. Kanu realized, Mother isn't immortal, and if he doesn't grow up, there will be no one left to protect. Darkness fell over the Serengeti like a black blanket, covering all that remained unknown. The dry season's night wasn't cold, but it was desolate, and thick with the scent of death. Mira still lay there, her breaths slower now. She no longer had the strength to lift her head, but her eyes remained cracked open, like a fading flame, refusing to die. Blood had dried into a dark crust along her side. The wound no longer bled, but it didn't heal either. Kanu stayed beside her, unmoving, unyielding. His eyes stayed locked on the darkness. His ears twitched at every sound, and each gust of wind made him growl softly. Then, a faint sound. A twig snapped. A foul scent drifted in on the breeze. Hyena. A low silhouette appeared near the edge of the brush, its hunched body creeping, eyes glinting in the dark. It had smelled the blood, and like all scavengers of this land, it didn't come to fight. It came to feed. Mira didn't move. Her strength was gone, but Kanu had some left. For the first time, he lifted his tail, squared his shoulders, leaned forward, like a young lion ready to defend. For the first time, he didn't hide behind his mother. For the first time, he stood before her. The hyena paused. It hadn't expected defiance from a cub. Kanu let out a growl, not loud, not strong, but trembling and true, like the first crack in a shell, revealing the lion beginning to rise. The hyena hesitated. It glanced at Mira, still motionless. It looked back at Kanu, his legs shaking, but his gaze unwavering. In the dead silence of night, a battle could have begun. And then, as if nature itself wanted to give Kanu a chance, a lion's roar echoed in the distance. The hyena flinched. It wasn't Kanu's voice. It was a pride of lionesses closing in. The hyena let out a sharp hiss, then turned and vanished into the dark. Kanu stood his ground. He didn't know whose roar that was. He only knew the danger had slipped into the shadows, and his mother was still by his side. He turned, moved closer to Mira. Though his body was still small, for the first time he felt big enough to shield her. Not with strength, but with something else. Something quieter, but stronger. Responsibility. He lay down, resting his head against her chest. Her breath was weak, but still there. Her heartbeat slow, but not yet gone. And then, other shadows appeared on the horizon. Not threats, but something else. Something Kanu couldn't understand, yet was about to face. Could it be their last chance, or the hardest decision a fading mother would ever have to make? Dawn on the Serengeti was not gentle. A pride of lionesses approached. It was Mira's old pride. They had followed the scent of blood and the echoes of last night's roar. Among them were those who had once grown up beside her. Now they slowed their steps. Not enemies, just witnesses. An older lioness stepped forward. She didn't growl, she didn't snarl. She bowed her head and gently touched her nose to Mira's neck. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, without words. No one in the pride asked questions because they saw the answer in the eyes of the little cub. Kanu opened his eyes. He flinched at first, seeing the pride approach. But then a younger lioness, strong, calm, moved toward him. No growls, no dominance, just a soft nudge of her head, encouraging him to rise. Mira saw it. She knew. It was time. She couldn't go with him anymore. Kanu turned back. He pressed his face into his mother one last time. No tears, just a touch. Mira licked his cheek, like she did in the beginning, and now, as a final goodbye. The pride began to move. Kanu followed, slowly. Then, gradually, he found his place among their strong, steady steps. The sun climbed higher. The wind returned. The heat once again swept over the plains. But where Mira now lay, it was no longer a wound on the land. It was sacred ground. The mark of a love that never dies. Many rainy seasons have come and gone. Floods have swept through, then faded, leaving behind layers of silt and half-erased memories on the Serengeti plains. But one trace remains, not on the ground, but in the heart of a lion. Kanu is fully grown now, his coat dark gold and glistening, his shoulders broad, his stride confident. Among the pride, he's a fierce warrior, a skilled hunter, a male in his prime. But his eyes still carry something from long ago. A depth, a quiet, a gravity beyond his years. because in his past there was a mother. And every time he passes that field, where the tiny waterhole remains, where the brittle bushes still stand, where the scar of an old battle whispers beneath the dust, Kanu stops. He doesn't roar, he doesn't growl, he doesn't mark the land with sound. He simply walks and bows his head. Dear friends, the story of Mira and Kanu is not just a memory in the wild, it's a mirror, reflecting the sacred bond of motherhood. No species required, no words needed, no promises spoken. Because where there is a mother's love, there is a force that defies instinct, survival, even nature itself. We, humans, who seem so far from the world of lions, we too were once Kanu, shielded by our mothers in nights of fear, pushed away from danger by a hand, a look, a silent act of love. We grow up, grow strong, walk into the world, and sometimes we forget there was someone who bore it all so we wouldn't have to.